lottery to stake. I promise you that. Now, just this morning. Today is Monday, so you have the bingo for Star Monday and Monday and Ajusta. So if you miss the bingo for, you can stake the Star Monday or the Monday and Ajusta. These are the three opportunities we are giving to you for today, bit Monday. Now, the Social Security and National Insurance Trust, SSNIT, is reminding members and the public that they are you no longer need to visit any of their branches to access services physically. With the introduction of the SSNIT virtual branch, members can conveniently access services remotely anytime, anywhere, just using the SSNIT app or using the USSD. Just dial *711 *9 hash, *711 *9 hash, or you can use the SSNIT online portal, that's snit.org.gh. And the services available include members registration, benefit processing, update of personal records, and general inquiries. For seamless access to SSNIT 24-hour virtual services. Note, they have started the 24-hour services. So just kindly call SSNIT at 030-261-16222 to interact with the team. Remember, SSNIT always delivers on their promises. So this one, it is partial, 24-hour. Has started with SSNIT. So just visit their online portal and get your service you need. Now, if you're looking to expand your business horizons while also enjoying a world-class travel experience, it's something you should note all the time. The Vanuatu Business and Pleasure Tour 2026 is bringing together business leaders, investors, and professionals for a unique blend of strategic engagement and leisure. Participants will take part in business forums, networking sessions, and investment discussions. That is very necessary, while also enjoying Vanuatu's rich culture, scenic islands, and tourism attractions. It is business with purpose and pleasure. Note, registration is currently ongoing. It's open for the Vanuatu Business and Pleasure Tour 2026. Think business, think leisure, think Vanuatu. To register, you can call Vanuatu Trade Commission Ghana on 0240-229-282 or 0544-626-905. Note, registration is first come, first serve basis. Don't wait for last minute pressure. Get yourself registered now. And we always remind you to start your day on a very good note, especially on Mondays, because you're starting the week with it. Well, if you haven't had a cup of Mixi Choco this morning, you're truly missing out something very special. The rich new taste of Mixi Choco is crafted to brighten your mornings and keep you refreshed all day long. Everything you need is right in there for you. All what you need is in your share. Stay and enjoy a warm, comforting cup of Mixi. Now, for the coffee lovers, we are not leaving you out at all. We have something special for you too. Mixi has something special. Mixi Coffee delivers a creamy, smooth coffee experience that keeps you energized for your everyday hustle. Honestly, just one sip, you're going to feel it very well. And guess what? There's more. Introducing the new delicious Mixi Strawberry, a sweet, exciting addition, and one more reason you should love Mixi. Start your day right away. Start a week right away. Start it with Mixi. Mixi, trying to hot, shake. So before we get to Felix van der Pale with the gentleman on the headlines for this morning, let's see what the various newspapers have for us this morning. All right, so the Daily Graphic newspaper is saying, the big one, condemn attack on UN peacekeepers. Foreign Minister Mukudjeta Ablakwa is saying that over there he presses on Commonwealth. And First Lady Lorina Mahama urges action to advance gender equality. You can find the story on page 13. And 24-hour economy outfit signs take off energy deals. That's 2,000. I can't find out over there. 2,000 to drive industrialization. So you can find the story too on page 13 of the Daily Graphic newspaper this morning. The Daily Guide is also saying Ford boy pleads guilty to $10 million romance scam in the U.S. That's I'll find the story over there on page 3. Citizens judge cost of living, not inflation. John Paul Nkrumah is saying that over there. And women's leadership strengthens national development. That's the Vice President, Professor Nana Jinopukwa, is saying that over there. And 4 Ghanaians injured in Lebanon UN mission base attack. You can find a story on page 5 of the Daily Graphic newspaper this morning. The Chronicle, the big one on the front page, is saying AU appoints Ghanaian businessman as ambassador for Agenda 2026. You can find a story on page 2 and 3 over there. And Russia-Ukraine and US-Iran wars, Mahama trapped by his own words. Yeah, you can find the story too in there. A new traffic management at Tete Kwashi. Very soon you find that over there. And MPP USA branch elections Janice Asai Bidiakon poised to lead as chairman. You can find a story on page 12 over there. So these are some other stories. When you purchase the Chronicle, you find. The National Voice is also saying, from Dumsor to High Power Coast, People's Forum exposes broken pledges on affordable power. You can find a story on page 3 and page 10 of the National Voice newspaper. And cocoa price cuts spark outrage among farmers. Rekindles wage policy debates. You can find it, they have some placards to say cocoa farmers suffering, reverse the price cuts, CUC double standards, save our farms, no fair price, no cocoa. So these are the farmers saying that over there. I think this has been the China stories for the past few weeks now. So when you purchase the National Voice, you can find some other news stories in there as well. The Graphic Sports, Multi just finished the sports, so a 3 years World Cup formula beats Panama first, then shock England. Yes. And Dede opens Breda account. Yeah, you can find the story, some interesting sports updates. When you follow Multi Tito on our sports, you find some interesting stories with here as well. So these are some other news stories when you purchase most of the various newspapers this morning. You find interesting stories making headlines this morning, especially being a Monday starting the week. Phyllis van der Palen is already seated with a gentleman this morning to delve deeply into what the various newspapers are saying this morning. Over to you, Felix.
Yamaonachi biom. Yegudo Yeresheye Month of Heritage March or GTV Hade. Or from Kweku van der Palen. Wow, Felix. Over the weekend, the TVB obviously or Ghana Wednesday. But I met them go for Fred Ghana. I'm a Ghana. I'm saying, hey, that's why I'm a Ghana. I feel it was all Ghana Wednesday. Not sure this is your Ghana done. Kukua Ghana. My namesake. So I'm very excited about that. Monachi Bium, Ago Akwaba. And it's time for our GTV Breakfast Show headline segment. And I've been joined by my special guests. My immediate left, of course, I have Prince himself, Prince Ntiamwa, an entrepreneur. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you too. Good morning to your viewers.
Good. And then Oscar Provençal.
He's holding all the money in Ghana.
Oscar Provençal, who's saying that Prince is holding all the money in Ghana. We'll find out and see what my share is in that fund.
It's holding the president 20 million. We take it.
It's in the prophecy business.
I said it. I know. He's a reverend in his class now. Yes. And then I also have Tanko Musa Zakaria. He's a legal practitioner and also a lecturer at Unimark. Thank you for joining us. Today on Headlines, we welcome you and we lead with deep concern for our brave sons and daughters serving abroad. Our gallant Ghanaian peacekeepers in Lebanon came under serious attack at the UN base amid escalating tensions with some injured. We'll get into that discussion. And also on the energy front, which has a lot to do, with the crisis in the Middle East. COPEC is urging the urgent creation of a strategic fund. They call it a strategic fuel reserve fund to shield Ghana from supply shocks. And also our women celebrated a special day called International Women's Day on the theme Give to Gain. So we'll get into all those discussions and more. here on Headlines. You're so much welcome. So I'll start with Prince.
Yeah.
You say you have some wealth there. The Reverend Minister who's holding the wealth. So you have to really know what is going on.
We will talk about
We'll talk about that
when
later.
we offset.
I thought you were going to say he has a wealth of ideas. I mean,
That's also something
It's
else.
also part of it.
We're looking at
that's about
We used to convert that one into cash.
Absolutely. Okay, so we'll get into injured Ghanaian peacekeeper undergoing surgery while Ghana demands UN investigations into attacks. I'll start with you, Prince. The Pentagon calls this joint strike epic fury, and Israel also calls it the roaring lion. Interesting. Now it's been on missiles after missiles being fired left and right over the weekend. You know, I was watching some of them on CNN and all of that. Is this thing ending anytime soon, in your opinion?
As for conflicts and wars, if we sit here to say it will end, because people hold permanent interest and interest will change and alliances will change over time, you can't predict the end of conflicts. But sometimes there can be ceasefire, there can be some peace agreements so that international life can continue. Okay. Global coordination can continue. If you look at the Ghanaian soldiers who have been caught in, I call it crossfire, into this, peacekeeping in Lebanon, it's not something we started now. In 1978, when we started peacekeeping in Lebanon, after the Israeli invasion into southern Lebanon, we have already contributed peacekeepers to Lebanon from 1978. First, when General Emmanuel Erskine took to Lebanon with the troops to go and maintain peace. It's continuing. We contribute every year to maintaining peace between southern Lebanon and Lebanon. And the blue line, which divide Lebanon and Israel, is where we station these peacekeepers. You know, the idea is that these peacekeepers will always serve as a buffer to control the borders for them. So when they come under attack, it becomes a very serious issue, because when they go there, aside the things they do, you know, they have other responsibilities of even doing some humanitarian work. They also even train other military, the Lebanon military force too as well. So there's a lot they do within that enclave to support the life of the ordinary people in the southern Lebanon and the Israeli side. And so when they come under attack, it becomes unfortunate, because under the UN Convention, their activities is limited by legislation. So they can't even attack. Theirs is to maintain. So even if they are under attack, unless it's to protect themselves, they can't open fire. You know, so it limits their activity. So if the war escalates, the first thing we could have done as a country when we saw the tensions moving was to find out how these people will be secured. Because
so
they are there for peace.
you don't shoot back when you see that your life is under threat?
No,
Then
you only do self-defense. That one you can shoot back. But under any circumstances, when you put military people there, they should have the full complement of military activity. But when you go for peacekeeping, there are limitations to what they can do. So when tensions get to this level where you are standing in between two opposing groups, and don't forget, the Hezbollah at the Lebanon side and the Israeli army, there are still other militias even within the enclave that they are supposed to deal with all these people. So their work there is very elaborate, and as a country for peacekeeping, we are respected globally for the work we do, especially with the Lebanon side and other places that we have been. So it's unfortunate to us. I mean, when investigations like this are conducted and it's seen that it was premeditated, it was done out of a planned attack, it should be considered as a war crime, because you can't just attack somebody coming to maintain peace in the name of we are escalating a fight.
Yeah. All right. So you don't know whether this will continue or end sometime soon. But when I look at some of the statements, some coming from, the president himself, U.S. President Trump, he says things like they are not going to compromise if UN wouldn't also, if Iran, not UN, if Iran wouldn't also, sort of heed to what they are expecting from them. And Iran is also not ready to bow to this whole thing. So it tells us that this might go a long way. Oscar?
Well, he was talking about prophecies. We've been talking about this kind of thing for the past couple of weeks now.
Yeah.
That
last week it touched.
Ghana should be very careful in getting sucked into this global conflicts that are popping up. I think at first my colleagues didn't understand where I was coming from, but I'm happy today they do. And see how quickly it is to get Ghana involved in such conflicts. It's hard to believe, and well, it's under investigation, so obviously one cannot, jump to any conclusions. But it's hard to believe that an Israeli strike, one missile, okay, fine, one way, what, two? That one I'm not too sure. And that enclave is predominantly a Ghanaian enclave.
Lebanon.
Yes, now UNIFIL site. So my first words would be, of course, to the injured men. I don't think we lost any lives. Hopefully we have, and we won't.
We hear they're under quite stable conditions.
Yes, but our thoughts and prayers go to them and their families. It must be a pretty traumatic time for them as well. They expect their kin to go and serve the nation and come back. So, I think that we're getting into a very, very, very complex situation right now. What Ghana can do, I don't know. I don't think that we can, even if the investigations come out and they find out that it's deliberate, I don't know what kind of retaliatory action Ghana can take. But this is how fragile we are now within the global politics. Non-aligned, issues are coming up. You have countries like Japan who are rearming, Germany are rearming. They're realizing that, hey, after World War II and the positions that they took, they have to change it within the politics that is playing out today. And, I'm sure there's going to be some critical thinking now regarding how we're positioning ourselves as this non-aligned country.
Are you driving at a World War III?
Well, I mean, every time these conflicts pop up, and especially when it comes with Israel, people go to the Nostradamus prophecies, and out of the Middle East, the Third World War, or something like that will start. The date for that prophecy has gone, but anyway, who has a date on prophecies? But obviously, it bodes. You're seeing now that U.S. bases are being attacked. It's turning out to be proxy wars. Different countries are getting, attacked. And so it's not just limited between Israel and Iran or America and Iran. They're getting hit all over the place. We've been hit. Why we've been hit, we have no idea. Some are here saying because of what the president said during his UN speech. I don't see how on earth that would cause Israel and the U.S. to hit Ghana's, interest there. But it's a pure wake-up call. And Iran will be hitting U.S. bases wherever they are. I think Ghana, we have a U.S. base. I've been talking about this thing, where we have U.S. interests here, and it opens us up. So, on the diplomatic front, I wish the foreign minister luck, but he's going to have, this is a very serious time, and I hope that he is ready for the job at hand. And I know there's a lot of wise counsel that is there within our armed forces, our national security setups and so forth, our diplomatic front, so that it is handled well. And the reason why I say this is that I don't know if anybody has missed this. There was a statement from the Ghana Armed Forces. I've read a couple of articles, and they're using one word that was in that article. And it was a press release, and that I don't know if you have the press release, and that the soldiers were traumatized. When one of the soldiers were traumatized. As far as I'm concerned, if a soldier is traumatized, where should I be as a citizen? You're out there to protect me, and you're traumatized. You're trained for this. So I don't think it is good PR for the army to be talking about its soldiers being traumatized.
This is the stage or point where the armed forces need our support in every way, even the things we say. But this sounds like
it's a communication issue. If it's an internal issue, as far as I'm concerned, I don't care. I don't know what anybody else says, but as far as I'm concerned, that's an internal issue. But to the public, when you say your soldiers are traumatized by an attack, then we, the civilians who they are supposed to protect, what are we supposed to think? Is it a sign of weakness? Is it showing a sign of weakness? If you say that to the international press, now maybe Israel may think that, now we know how to traumatize these guys. You rather need to show a position of strength, and you don't release that kind of information. As far as you don't put it out like that.
But
in my view,
that release you're talking about, I think a portion of it says they are still in high spirits in spite of whatever's happened. That also suffices. It makes up for whatever.
Well, I mean, so opinions are like onions. So I'm not giving my opinion.
Okay, I'll bring Zakaria in as well. It's unfortunate that our guys are under attack. I mean, there are hazards on the job. Now, an investigation is being, Ghana is managed for an investigation by the UN. And I'm wondering how this will turn out. This is a war. And who are you going to hold responsible? Where? It's a war and it's crisis.
The U.S. Congress are running away from the use of the word war because they know the consequences of that nomenclature sticking. If that nomenclature is accepted, then the international, rules and regulation kicks in. And when it kicks in, then it means that the initiation of that war is flawed, the international law. So if you watch CNN and you look at what is going on, they said it's not a war. They put it in different ways because for you to be able to go to war, there are two basic conditions in international law, either as self-defense or if it has been sanctioned by the UN. And none of these actually been triggered by the instant case we find ourselves in. So I don't think it is a war. For me, I don't think it's a war, frankly. But if you look at all the hallmarks of a war, you would say that, yeah, it is a war. And Donald Trump himself sometimes does say that it is a war. But Oscar said something which is very remarkable, that he doesn't know what we're going to do, whether we're going to retaliate or not. I don't think retaliation is an immediate consideration, because even when you look at all the other countries in the sub-region that the U.S. has bases, and as a result of that, Iran targeted those bases. They haven't retaliated themselves per se. So we would not be thinking retaliation immediately. But I think the call is appropriate for an investigation to be conducted, because, diplomatically, nobody is apportioning blame for now. And that's part of the diplomatic language, although probably you may know where it is coming from, but you don't want to apportion blame. You want to go through the process of getting the UN to the Security Council to investigate. And once investigation is conducted, obviously they will come out with a report, and whatever recommendations would come out. And I think it is also symbolic that we have actually gone ahead to do that, to send a signal that we don't consider this acceptable, and we are people who actually respect a due process, and so we are asking the institutions that are supposed to investigate this to do that. Clearly, when soldiers go out there, whether it's peacekeeping or to go out there to combat, they have been oriented to believe or to accept the fact that these are some of the, hazards of the profession they have willingly accepted to be part of. So such things don't come as a surprise to soldiers. But of course, they are human. And human as they are, when such things happen, they would be traumatized. If they're not traumatized, then they are not human. But the way they would be traumatized cannot be the way Prince sitting here would be traumatized, because if they are traumatized the same way that Prince is traumatized, then that's where Oscar is coming from. Then we are in trouble.
No, we say we are, well, for want of a better word, in a democratic dispensation, want transparency in everything that happens, because they are for us. They don't own themselves. So we have to know how they are feeling, how they're doing on the job. So what is wrong with saying
that's what I was saying. So that's why it's important for us to if you like, because now the key word is transparency. When you are transparent and open in the way you communicate, it makes things easier. It doesn't allow room for propaganda and spinning. But remember, I always say, and as a communicator, I know the role words play. Words can be very, 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 if you like, demoralizing as well. So I get where Oscar is coming from. Is if you like, it's more or less like a blessing and a curse. In one breath, you want to send out the message for people to empathize, sympathize with those people, to realize that this is what you're going through. But you also have to be very careful not to send out a signal that, hey, these people are not really that, tough, and therefore just a little bit. So it's that balance. And so that is why in communication, some instrumental or that would be counterproductive. If I was drafting that communication, maybe I wouldn't use the word traumatized, because of the fact that these are, the situation is still ongoing, and you don't want to send a signal of maybe weakness or something. But there is a purpose, because you see, in communication, every word you choose has to be chosen for a particular effect. So what makes it unethical or reckless is where you didn't think about the choice of words. You just put that choice of words just for putting sake. But I want to believe that they put that choice of words because they want people to know that this is what has happened and people to empathize with them. But we need to also be careful not to be sending out a signal.
All right,
that we have
well made. Yeah. Now, they are working under UNIFIL, so more or less they are UNIFIL's responsibility. What's the implication of this on UN?
Well, obviously, this is an attack on the UN, on UNIFIL. It's an attack on the UN. A complete contravention of their articles. So, but what we're seeing today is the blatant disregard for United Nations protocols, Congress to go to war, and now he will sit here and we're trying to redefine what the meaning of war is. It has the elements of war, but it's not war. It walks like a duck.
It's doomsday. It's not doomsday.
Quacks like a duck. Looks like a duck. It's a duck. I don't know how many bullets you are waiting to come your direction and how many bombs that you want to receive before you call a war a war. Is what? Scratch my back, I scratch yours. Come on, let's get serious.
So it is a war.
But of course it's a war. It can't be anything else but a war. I don't know how you define war. We sit here and we just lobby missiles across to Nigeria or to Burkina. They'll call it an act of aggression, an act of war. They will move straight away into what they call DEFCON 1. Straight away, they move into a war position. They position all their soldiers and their intelligence, everything for war. So, hiding behind words and trying to create a diversionary thing that is not war, it doesn't wash. It doesn't wash one bit. And I think that we're in for very serious times, you see, because we look up to these global countries like the US and Britain. We've seen their arbitrariness before. We've seen them go into Iraq. We've seen them go into Libya without, UN resolution approvals and all of that. We've seen all of this. And so if I'm an African leader sitting down one day and I'm not democratically inclined and I'm not a benevolent ruler, and I see all of this, if you are doing it, why can't I do it?
Okay. Great.
Just you know, I think about Article 39 of the UN Charter. It doesn't define a war, but it says that the existence of a war is determined by whether or not there is a threat to peace, breach of the peace, or an act of aggression. So that should tell you.
So it's a war.
It is.
So
Earlier you were trying, you were not too sure that's a war.
I said that they are refusing. They are trying to redefine it because they know the consequences of not redefining it. Because if you accept that is a war, then invariably you are accepting that you have gone on a mission that hasn't followed the international protocol.
So for the UN to continue to stay as a neutral arbiter in terms of peacekeeping and going forward, I think they should look at how these peacekeepers will be well protected in terms of advanced technology for them, in terms of maybe installing station. So UN really have to do more, because if you are not going to deploy people and looking at how things can escalate, and this war has taken a different dimension. It's been more of a technological war than a physical combat that we used to know when it comes to wars. So as the technology is going forward, the use of drone surveillance and all that, radar detectors that can let them detect in advance to know what they can do, the UN should be responsible for putting all these things in place. I know over time, when you look at our troops, when they go for peacekeeping, in fact, some of the equipment they use there, after they are done, UN give some of them to the countries that went for the peacekeeping as well, and we get a lot of also support from the UN as well. But they should now step the system.
You are Reverend Minister, right?
Yeah. You should pray for peace, right?
And I'm saying that there's something I saw in circulation.
What about
the late TV Joshua's video in circulation? He was talking about this particular incident.
No, I mean, prophecies.
Is that anything about
prophecies in general, people can speak about prophecies, and I mean, we can't detach the world from people who can speak the future in terms of prophecies. When they do come, we document it. We should be guided by it. When you have a foreknowledge, what do? You have a foreknowledge to be not to get into what has been prophesied. But if you have a foreknowledge and you play into it, then it means you are deliberate in getting information.
You played into it.
In 1973, Americans knew that the global oil, even the supply chain, can be distorted. And they started taking positions. Who is holding what? What can affect us? Let's create a strategic reserves and all that. So once people begin to think in these ways, and other people also will think that, okay, we also have it, we will do this, then interest of people begin to, escalate some of these ideas. So once everybody is doing their normal activity and we don't look at where the boundaries should end, we can play into some of these prophecies, and when it happens, it can be a viral video going on, but we are there.
The worrying part is the commercialization of the prophecy.
I don't think
commercialize anything.
What is commercialization?
Yeah, but communication to pray.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that when you put those things across, it is to attract something, and that attraction has some commercial element to it. Okay. There is also the bit about the swaggering that goes with some of these, prophecies and all these things. But you asked a very profound question about the consequences. And for me, I think that there is something that is increasingly playing out. Anytime any member of the UN Security Council is engaged in one act or the other, the UN gradually seems to be losing its clout, because the way they act when any member of the Security Council is involved, and when those members of the Security Council are not involved, it's totally different. And the relevance of the UN Security Council is gradually being called into question when it comes to some of these big players. That the big players are almost getting away with murder, and the zeal and the enthusiasm with which the UN is able to, push things is different. And sometimes they get ignored anyway. That's why people were asking continuously that, listen, we have to reform the whole UN, especially the UN Security Council. You cannot have a situation where you have these few countries that are members of the UN Security Council, and you have certain continents that don't have any membership at all and all those things. And nothing is being done. So, I mean, it's just a case of, that's what we have now, and so we have to make do with it. But frankly, the UN, in terms of its ability to prevent some of these things from happening, even when they are foretold of that, and when it is happening, how they intervene, and then the aftermath and all those things, is leaving much to be desired. And I think that it is
the strength of the UN is in the membership that they have. And these members are the people who contribute. This is the Security Council people. They are actually the highest contributor to the operations of the UN. And whoever pays you, obviously, you can't go and arrest your boss.
That is what brings the whole architecture into place. And
that architecture too is needed by even the people who are trying to disregard their power. They themselves, they also need it.
But
you undermine something that you need.
I like
in terms of the process.
There should be fairness and equity in all of this. I mean, the global situation has changed.
I think as we speak, but this is what you're showing right now. What happened at the headquarters base of our government.
And there's no doubt that there has to be reforms within the UN. I think they've recognized that, and countries are pushing, very hard for those reforms. But I want to, we're talking about the UN, and you brought in TB Joshua.
You're looking very uncomfortable.
Please, let's get serious. I mean, Charlie, we are sitting here. We have U.S. interests here, a U.S. base here. I'm sure most Ghanaians and who should have the right to know the terms and the conditions of that agreement and the possible effects it can have. We are talking about TB Joshua. The man has passed and gone. They brought up a prophecy. Whether the prophecy was
the Reverend Minister sitting here, so we need
seriously. Let's
opinion on that dimension as well.
Let's not bring those elements.
At least we've done it.
No. Let's not. This is a serious issue. People are losing their lives.
Oscar, but the part that I wanted
as we sit here, as we sit here, there's so many people who have lost their lives. Even the attack in Iran. Nobody talks about the 160 school children who were killed. It's not even mentioned in the news. 160 school children. Now, if it wasn't 4 soldiers and it was 160 Ghanaians, would we talk about TB Joshua right now? We won't. So please, I mean, let's get serious about these things. It's as if we have a certain fear of discussing U.S. and Israeli issues because we are fearing that maybe something can happen to us personally or as a country. Look, the reality is the reality.
Who's scared here?
And there are people out there who are scared to talk. And so, I mean, I think that let's face it as a country.
But Oscar, interestingly and fortunately, we hear that our men have been re-kitted. That's what we heard.
What?
Re-kitted.
What's that?
Well, it has to do with their kits. The attacks, got them losing a lot of things. That has been done.
You see, that once again, it's a small issue. Re-kitted. You have given somebody that lost his shirt and trouser. You have given shirt and trouser. Is this one too news? Oh, come on, Charlie, my brother. We are talking about Master. If one day if one day Ghana has to take a stand, what stand will that be? Now that's a nice discussion to have. What stand will we stand? Will we stand aloof while they are killing our people, or will we take sides with the Israelis, or will we take sides with the Americans or the Iranians?
So you tell us, in the face of all of this, you have to tell us.
Well, I mean, that's not my job. My job, that's the president and foreign minister's job and his team.
But he seems to be having some interesting ideas.
Yes, but as a citizen, I should be concerned look, this aloofness that we have as citizens.
Even the president, Oscar, even the president cannot take that unilateral decision. The people's representatives would have to have a role.
Okay, so now we're having a conversation.
Demonstrate, yeah. So,
yes.
but I think that one of the very important things that Oscar said is about the fact that children were killed on the very first day of the war, school children, and when the U.S. president was asked, he denied it actually, and then the journalist was very clever. I don't know whether you saw that clip. So the journalist was very clever, and at that time his Secretary of State was standing by his side, and he asked the Secretary of State the same question. They said, "You attacked the primary school, and the president is denying it. Are you denying it?" He said, "They are investigating." Wow. That should tell you something. But there is also one very profound thing as a media person. I think that there is a lot of censorship of news regarding this particular thing. If you try to do some search here and there is some level of censorship out there. So that can understand why sometimes there is, you can see from the frustration Oscar is showing, there is some censorship. So some of the information don't get out there. And in war, some of these things happen. Those who control the media and all those things would frame the narrative and do the censorship and all those things. So that's why sometimes you would see that the coverage or the information that is put out there is almost one-sided. But that is what happened. That's why if you look at the new World Information Order, those who anticipated this were always trying to also build their own media empire and platforms and all those things, because these are the consequences.
And this dovetails into COPEC, because it has a direct relation, oil and all of that. And they are urging the creation of a strategic fuel reserve fund to shield Ghana from supply shocks. But last week, the NPA, Edug and his team, they confirmed that they hold significant fuel reserves, to ensure supply stability and all that.
Prime Minister.
Here we are having this word from COPEC. So are we blowing hot air?
It cannot be. It cannot be hot air that we're blowing. So this is the global picture. The amount of fuel a country like Ghana needs to operate, per the ones we are drilling, it cannot support. We have agreements even on it. So basically, it's not a conversation even to go there. So we rely on the global market, and energy issues when it comes to petroleum issues, they are a national security issue. It can ground a country to a halt. So when it happened, even in the US in 1973, when they had that shock, oil shock, where the Arabian countries turned off their taps, they realized that this thing had to be taken. So in 1975, they immediately put up the strategic reserve fund, petroleum reserve, so that they can save crude oil. They created that buffer for 740 million barrels that they can save, and that should be able to take them through 125 days if there are issues globally to absorb that shock. So as a country like Ghana, which we depend heavily on importation, there should be a conversation, as COPEC is pushing, to have some of these reserves. If you look at BOST runs some of these tank farms, so they can be empowered to create more of these tank farms, to reserve some petroleum to augment some of these shocks. Yes, when you go to the Global Energy Agency, the members who have subscribed to it, they came on after those shocks by the US to say that let's create this agency so that everybody can save up to 90 days of fuel when there are issues, so that you can absorb the shock globally. So in the US case, anytime the crude oil prices globally is down, they buy more to save and put them in their reserves. It's the same thing COPEC is pushing in Ghana. Okay. COPEC is saying that even if you put 10 pesos on fuel, on every gallon of a liter that we buy, we should be able to make between 40 to 50 million Ghana cedis a month and push it into reserve. The problem here that always we have issues is not the levies that will be put on these petroleum products or anything, how it will be managed. Always is the problem.
But now people probably will not receive this well because
how it will be managed. Listen, if we are going to put 10 pesos on it and it will increase fuel prices by even 10 or 20 pesos, and it will be managed well, I tell every Ghanaian will subscribe to it. The management becomes a problem. When you go to America and they said they were going to create a special petroleum reserve, every levy they will put on the people, they will see how the thing has translated into what they are going to put down and the effect when there are global shocks like what is currently happening. So we can't be at the receiving end when the fluctuations in the global market will be pushing us left and right when there are issues. So as a country, this is a conversation to have. And how the funds will be managed, how even the reserves will be managed. If we tell you some of the issues that can happen in this country, you'll be shocked. A reserve tank within burst or something can get missing and we can't even trace it.
Okay, so
that's where the challenge comes in.
The idea of this fund sounds great, but my issue is how people are going to take it. Because immediately you begin to complain that, hey, you're increasing, the price of fuel.
They will complain based on the management.
I think where we are, the government has enough goodwill. Despite the fact there's a lot of people who think they're losing that goodwill with what has happened recently. I think there was a one city slap on fuel or so. We absorbed it. Now we're entering critical times. I think global fuel prices have hit $100 a barrel.
Yes, it's doing 115.
115 now.
Yeah.
You're having a shock with our backbone, cocoa. So if you're being hit on the fuel side, you're being hit on the cocoa side, and then you might even be hit even harder, because what's going to happen is, as long as investors feel that global trading is shaky, they're going to withdraw their monies and they're going to invest in either metals like gold and so forth, where it is more secure and less volatile. That's obviously going to kick up the price of gold. You will see gold surging, and so we might benefit on that side. And there might be a windfall if the price of gold shoots up because of the escalation of the war. But you're going to see it affect economies in a big way. And we have a very little playing field. Very, very little.
We don't determine price in all this.
We can talk about the economy is recovering and doing that. But I hope today nobody will talk about, because of Iran, Israel war, it doesn't affect Ghana. I hope nobody will come and say that like they said about Ukraine war. So let's tell the people the truth. Let's position Ghanaians. I remember Kennedy said, don't ask what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. But you won't do for your country if your country is not doing for you. When you watch American films, you will always see they'll do American Blue Man. They never leave the last man. They always go back for the last man. They're brainwashing their people that their country is behind them. Their country is worth sacrificing for and dying for. Sadly, I think this is far away from Ghana's mentality. We are rather wanting to cripple this country. Everybody's trying to steal blindly. Everybody's trying to put the country down. We've lost that patriotism. We've lost that fervor. We've lost it. And so a combination of all those things, with all these things coming to, hopefully not happen, but we should recognize that we are also in difficult times. So what COPEC is asking for, I think it's in order. We've done it for gold. We have a gold reserve program. Why won't we do it for our key national resources? And this is the time we should be seriously looking at the refinery aspects about oil that is being produced. I hear they're trying to discover more oil wells and so forth. And so we should be looking at seeing how we can get Tema refinery or more refineries so that we can, refine our own oil and have our own supplies and not rely so much on the global supply.
So you agree with COPEC and you seem to buy into the concept. But if we're saying that we've lost it all, then it makes the situation also looks a bit hopeless.
Well, you see, Independence Day celebrations, that's why sometimes these things are significant. You know, they raise the morale, they raise the patriotism, they bring back the fire, you know, into citizens. They feel a belonging. Oops. They feel a belonging. And so, you know...
Did you participate?
Did I participate? In my heart and in my soul. And I participated because my father was involved in the independence struggle.
Yeah.
He and Nkrumah came out of prison
so
together.
How did you participate?
Came out of prison together, and they were sitting in the same car. There's this historic picture of Nkrumah surrounded by the crowd.
All right, so time.
So I remember it
so you
because of my own father. Yes, I participated.
In spirit?
In spirit and in truth.
Interesting.
Yeah, So Oscar is absolutely right that, you know, the practicality and actually the literature suggests that anytime there is problems with the oil sector, there's risk, the gold, you know, business gets attractive, and we would benefit from that. But we need to also be mindful that that can have its own plus and minuses. But in terms of the call by COPEC, I think it's a sensible call. But it also has practical hurdles, and I think my colleagues have mentioned that, because COPEC themselves, in their own estimation, put 6 months if we want to get about a 6-month buffer. Because you were talking about EDUG, what EDUG said. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was not a much ado about nothing. But basically what EDUG said was that we had about 6 weeks of reserve, but 6 weeks of reserve in what we have witnessed in now, where nobody knows when the end is in sight. 6 weeks was woefully inadequate. What COPEC is suggesting is beyond that 6 weeks. Yeah. And they themselves, in their own analysis, argued that a 6-month buffer is going to be roughly around $3 billion. Now, that would be way beyond our current, you know, budget and all those things. And that means that that's where the issue of, you know, levy would come in. And there would even be issues about storage capacity. That means that building the facilities and all those things, that would also require resources, you know, that would require resources. But above all, like they said, the key issue would be about the governance and the management. Who is going to run the fund? How transparent are going to be the allocations and all? These are things that are happening. We have been there with other areas. And I think that sometimes we need to be very practical. And most of the time, when people are criticizing some of these issues or some of these suggestions, it's not because they are being skeptical. It's not because they think that it is not legitimate. It's because of the concerns about how the previous ones have been managed and all those things. But certainly, if we can actually gather the resources to have the facilities, to be able to get stock for a longer period of time, that would cushion us. In the long run, we would all benefit. But if people are willing to sacrifice, to be levied for us to do this, then certainly the management of that resources should be transparent and open. And where it is demonstrated that, or it is suggested that that management has not been done in the way it should be done, there should be accountability, and the things, you know, people should be seen to be held accountable, and punishment should be meted out. But that is what we don't see, and that is why people get a little bit skeptical, and then people push back. And of course, when it happens that way, people who want to also take advantage of the situation would come in with their propaganda.
So you see, well, this accountability thing, that's why in countries like China, the citizens can go all out in whatever they are doing as a national objective. Because people who mismanage state assets are dealt with ruthlessly.
Yeah. But we have the laws to do that. It's about the enforcement.
Executed how many?
Yes.
We are not
in this case,
execution is a bit more extreme.
It's more extreme, but there's no punishment.
Other punishments that
like
can
in prison and everything, like people paying back and all that, so that people begin to trust in the system.
The whole 360 thing, you know,
they begin to trust in the
investigate,
system.
You know, punishment, even sometimes clawing back what the people have taken, and making reforms in terms of policies to make sure that people don't have the opportunity to be able to exploit that loophole.
Are you wondering why people are skeptical? I'm not a little skeptical We have generation of this. We are not a little skeptical. Little. It's not little, no. It's plenty.
So this point
we have become so skeptical. We do not believe in our judiciary. We do not believe in our governance systems.
To doubt in our process, and even how
it is at the heart. It is at the heart of.
But let me ask: is there the possibility of us evading this shortage thing? Because the anticipation is there. It's in certain countries already. Iran itself, Pakistan, Australia.
Why would we want to?
Robert says you can't evade.
It should spur us on.
Yes.
To recognize that we need to be truly independent of global supply chains as much as possible wherever we have the comparative advantage.
We should do.
And we have the comparative advantage. So what are we doing? Are we playing to this, and I always say this import mafia system that is here, that we are combating, and the kickback that is going to come from all the importers, that when we want to do import substitution is going to come in? And that's what's going to happen. There's going to be kickback. These people are making serious amounts of money, whether it's in rice, sugar, you name it. They're importing and they're making huge amounts of money. What I want to hear is that what is that policy? How are we going to be able to tell these major importers to move towards being producers instead of importing? How do we engage them to say, hey, listen, okay, you're importing $100 million worth of sugar. Cut it down. We'll help you build a factory, and so that we can start producing sugar in Ghana. So you move them away from being importers into manufacturers. How do we do that? Because they're businessmen. Businessmen is about profitability. And so they're not going to make profit. They'll move their money out of this country. But we want to say that we are going forward. We want to industrialize. But we cannot industrialize if we continue on this trajectory of importation. And we recognize that. But how do we bring them along? It's not just about establishing new factories with a new set of people. How do we get those who already have the money? Not those guys who are running around looking for government facilities to take some money to establish some, and they're looking for money from the banks at 25% interest, which they are struggling with. How about those who are the importers now, who have millions and millions of dollars at their fingertips, who can just redirect some of those resources into the manufacturing sector?
Okay.
How do we bring them?
I want us to move on to the last topic, which I promised. There was an International Women's Day, and our Vice President says empowering women is a strategic investment in better governance. I'd like to ask, I'll start with you, Prince, again. Are you impressed with how we involve women in running our daily activities from governance and at all levels?
You know, so if you look at the global architecture, even from the outside of history, you see women involvement. Even in America, women right to vote was just, not quite too long ago. So it means that in history, women had been marginalized for some time, you know. If we are to place about 50% of your population not empowered, it's a national problem you are creating. So empowering women means that we want to get to a level where the 100% of the population can all be productive at a certain level to get the returns we are looking for back. So their team, the global team was give to gain. What they are saying is that when you give to women, it's like pushing yourself into a place where they can also give back so that you also gain what you have invested in them. You know, so it's improved over time. If you look at what we are doing now, the roles that they are playing in government, if you go to a place at the University of Ghana, we had a female vice chancellor. No, we are doing well. We are really doing well. But we can do more. You know, it's not a conversation that we want to let it sleep. Yeah. Every year we should celebrate, we should push them more, because they need more encouragement to do more. Okay. Because it's not like what we have had over ages that we keep leading, so that becomes like a default settings.
All right.
We need to help to also get them into that default setting.
Oscar, the Vice President mentioned 30% minimum involvement. And I'm saying, okay, then why not 50-50?
Well,
50 as minimum.
Yeah, I mean, we recognize the marginalization of women from the days of Nana Konadu, late First Lady, and her push for, women emancipation and equality from the Beijing Conference and all that. There's this movement for women to, even in Parliament, they're supposed to have how many? So it's in the right movement. Whether we should have, I think, look, let's face it, women multiply. Yeah? You give a woman a seed, she gives you a child.
Yeah, we've had that.
You give her plantain, she'll give you a meal. They multiply. Yeah. It's true that a lot of women think they're enemies unto themselves, but that shouldn't be the reason why we, as men, think that they should be marginalized, they should earn less than their colleagues who are, on the same levels as they are. And all these, things are happening within the space for women.
Okay.
And I think
more involvement.
When it comes to let it take their place.
I think any call for women to be part of our national, psyche cannot be a bad call, because, globally they represent about 49.7%, and in Ghana it's about 50.1%. And how can you have such a segment of your population and they are not enlisting? But clearly we have to admit that there are a lot of, financial challenges that women face. They have a lot of institutional biases that they face. And of course, even the media framing of women when they are involved in any activity itself, it's also a problem. Right. And there are a lot of indirect discrimination against women. And I think that if we want to achieve that, we need to move beyond the rhetorics and be a bit more practical and recognize the fact that women cannot be ignored in the democratic architecture of this country.
Unfortunately, we've run out of time.
Maybe there ought to be affirmative action. I'm not sure. I think there should be equality, but affirmative action for women, that I can agree for.
Can go far. Yes, all right. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for coming on. Thank you.
They pass it into a law.
Zakaria. Thank you, Oscar.
Indeed, is full of surprises. And with Rand Lotto, you never know what's around the corner. Whether you are chasing a dream, planning a vacation, or just looking for a little luck, Rand Lotto is here to help you turn chance into cash. Good morning and welcome to Rand Lottery Limited. Today's game is Rand Star Draw. We are live on GTV and also streaming live on all our social media platforms. YouTube, it is Rand Lottery Limited. Facebook and IG, it is Rand Lottery Limited. TikTok and X, it is Rand Lottery Limited. Then on our website is randlotterylimited.com. All Rand games are available Please do play responsibly.